Duluth or Morris, is anyone out there?
Hey, this is the Duluth campus. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, Duluth. I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. Sounds like it's working. All right. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Jeff.
I can hear you.
I can hear you just fine as well.
All right. Just heard from Duluth. So, looks like everything's good to go, and it's kind of dark at Rochester, so.
Okay, well, I'm sure it's working fine.
That would be what I would guess, so I'm going to sneak out.
Okay.
corner, facing me out.
Thanks.
I'm going to give just a couple more minutes for people to find the location. So we will start in 2 or 3 minutes.
Call it assess video conferencing documentation.
Can anyone hear us here in Crookston?
Hi, Levi. We can hear you.
Oh, awesome.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming today. We got kind of a light attendance, so obviously I didn't offer food or something to tempt people to show up. We have one person in Crookston, Levi, correct?
Yep.
Okay, good. So we'll want to make sure that we use the mics. I know sometimes that feels a little silly when we have a small group, but we want to make sure that Levi's included, and we possibly will gain some others a little later. We've got at least one person that's going to be joining us here on the Twin Cities campus a little later as well. So, again, welcome. We are going to have a couple of group work sessions today I'm pretty excited about. But this is what the meeting's going to look like today. So we are in our welcome stage. We'll do some updates of some work that's happened since our last meeting. And then we get a couple of group work sessions, particularly around the interactive map content. So we've been discussing for a number of meetings about helping the community to understand the governance process through the map and providing the opportunity for them to see the overview of the 4 phases, but then what does that mean? And so we need help from the community to decide, well, what is helpful for the community to see as far as detail that they can drill down to some more detail around the funding phase, for instance. And then, who are the players? When does it happen? Why does it happen? Anything that we think will be helpful for the community to help understand it. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that activity. Then another a little bit shorter time to break up and basically generate a video. All right, to explain governance. We have an example in the one that Scott Studham sent out last week. So I think we can build on that, make changes, but I want to be creative in building a 2-minute video. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. Then we'll wrap up and adjourn. Questions? Anything anybody else would like to add? Okay. So last week, one of the things that we talked about was having artifacts that will endure, in the idea that the fCoP, at least in its current form, would finish up March 1st. It's very possible that we'll finish earlier than that. But officially, March 1st is when we started. 1 year from that is when we would be done, unless we have no more work to do. And so what we want to make sure is that all of the work that we've done, the discussions we've had, endure into future years so that the community is continually able to understand the governance process and feel like they're a part of the process. So this is just a list that came out of the brainstorming last week, our last meeting, full community meeting, some of the artifacts that we can have in place. The fCoP site, which is already there. The expectation around this, of course, would be that OIT Communications would continue to use that site or the content from it that has been generated. A second one, list of priorities from the input phase. Okay, that happens within the process that's governed, that is managed by the ACIOs. Priorities that result from decision making is something that will continually be happening. Plan for ongoing communication. So this is the communication plan that the communications group has been working on. They have a number of those things identified. Elevator speech is complete, and so those things will get fleshed out in the next couple of and we'll have that communications plan. Wow, that was exciting. Rex is playing tricks. The communication plan that can continue into the future. Data process comes from the ACIOs. So what happened? What was funded? What was implemented? All right, so some sort of probably part of the communication plan, but people felt it's important to identify, well, we had the front end that was communicated that you need to have the input. Well, what happened? What was the result? Suggestion of having a banner somewhere that lets people know where we are currently in the process. On the I would guess it would be a good spot would be it.umn.edu. It affects everybody, people going there hopefully for IT issues, and immediately they can see this is where we are in the governance process. What are the priorities? What's the phase? And then a suggestion about the IT Gov cycle graphic that we're going to talk about today. Do you have a question, Rex? Okay. So I wanted to show, since we're going to be talking about the content for drilling down or providing more content to understand the process, here's where we started, this great overall graphic for the governance process, our main phases, and then some detail around that. Then, as you may remember, I was asked to try to bring some clarity around that. And so next slide is what first attempt at what resulted. But this was a little difficult to read, a little complex. So then it got flattened out a little bit and looked something like this. And then this was another example to help try make it a little more visually appealing by a non-communicator. And then a detailed view of what someone from OIT Communications put together as a graphic that would be able to be disseminated. That's has a nice clean look and a good design. And then this was generated out of the communications group this last month, and I would be considered draft form. So this is just something to consider as a possibility of, again, an artifact that can endure, that helps the community understand the governance process. I'll give you just 30 seconds to read the detail there.
And just a side note, no feedback was given to our graphic designer off of this, and she's our student intern, so don't look at the content too closely yet.
Okay, and we can come back to this too as needed. So the idea of this group working session, I kind of expected to have a few more people. I was going to split people up into 4 groups. Maybe we can still do that. They'll just be smaller groups than I originally thought. But based on the 4 phases and armed with the graphics that we've generated so far, any one of those is a possibility for a starting point. Maybe it's all of them. Maybe we decide that it's helpful for people to be able to drill down into content from this one. Maybe it's helpful to drill down into detailed content from this one, and maybe from this one. So after we split up into groups, the first question is, what's your opinion on that? Have a quick discussion about what do you think is going to serve the community best? What do you think is the best front door? Is it this graphic? Is it this one? This one? All 3? Only 2 of them? What do you think is going to help the community best? So that's the first task. The second one is, what's the content? All right? And so the 4 groups are based on the different, the four phases. So one group will be talking about input. What's the detail when you drill down from this to help people understand? What do they need to know about the input phase? What do people need to know about the decision process? Okay? Questions about that? All right, so everybody's fair game. So we've got group one, probably can gravitate around one table over in the corner out to the left over here. And that would be the input phase. Group two, right here. Group three is right in this area here, and group four over here. So we can either just separate and ask that you try to make even groups. Can we do that? Or we could number off too. Can we separate into even groups? Yeah. If I need to pull out my teacher mode, I can do that. All right. And then the last 10 minutes, we'll do a report back.
So input group, our online participant Levi would like to participate in this group.
Awesome.
Okay.
So he can just talk through the mic system, but this other mic will pick you guys up.
Okay.
But it won't go through the system.
We'll hear him.
You could
Are you
hear
there,
them. You
Levi?
would be able to, yep.
Yeah,
Can you hear us?
There we
Yay,
go.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
She just set a little tiny black box in front of us. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you literally are a black box for us right now. That's funny.
Did you hear the link for or do you already have the slides?
Yep, I have the slides.
Okay.
All right. Josh is having technical
I had them. I
challenges.
just closed them all. I tried to open the 1080p screen at 12 inches and touchscreen. It's easy to misclick.
Susan had that machine for a little while and constantly did that. Like, would be showing people stuff, pointing to it and gone. Yep.
I actually really like this machine for the most part.
Do you?
I haven't had any real problems.
Yeah.
Other than the Windows 8s. Okay, Z.
have you been using 8 on?
Since October.
Ah, do you like it?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's honestly, once you get used to it, it's pretty fast. Tico. Yay, it's back. So it might actually be easier. So we're supposed to look at the pictures and first talk about which one we like the best.
Yep.
I left my house and that's complicated. Let's go back to 2014.
All right.
Was everybody able
Yep.
to find it?
Mhm. So I like the concept of the circle picture.
Yeah, very much.
I do too.
I like that one. I probably would want to give some feedback on it.
I think
Some changes,
as KT said, the graphics
Yep.
need to be changed.
But I think the idea of a cyclical picture is good.
Much easier to understand than the calendar. And the calendar has a lot more specific detail, but that
You can't glance at the calendar and get much. You can glance at this. You might not get the details, but once you got that, you can dig in.
yeah.
See, this would have been nice to see first before I saw this one, which I think this one has a ton of information,
Yeah.
and I think I understand it now.
Yeah.
But it took a while for me to get it, not
Yeah.
coming
It's
from
a very
anything.
He's looking at the
Nice.
original.
Yeah,
flow
sorry,
chart.
I'm looking at the flow chart. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that one's still important, but maybe it's the second one.
This
or-
one kind of
yeah.
breaks out who's involved in each process, and I can't read the cycle one to say if it says it or not.
I don't think so. I think it's a higher level than that even.
Yeah, when it was up here, I mean, it just was very.
It's more conceptual, right?
Yeah. And I think what we captured from the last meeting is the concept of the circle, the 4 phases, and they just need to do some work on the
Please
graphics.
remember to take notes under discussion on your notepad. You can gather that after.
All right. So anyone have a strong opinion for the calendar one?
The calendar one that has multiple colors over the years is too busy.
It's a lot of color.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah, I mean, you could do something if you want to differentiate, have like blue, white, so that you break up, but
To be clear, you're referring to the one with the shaded backgrounds.
Yes, that one exactly.
I think these bar colors correspond to the colors in the flow chart. It might be nice if there was a legend on here to say what that was. But this is the one I guess that the communications group came up with, and it seems less busy. And I like that it breaks out the short-term and the long-term implementations. Otherwise, it's but it doesn't say much more than the circle. I mean, it does, but it's not. I don't know.
I have a bias to the flow chart and circle. Carry those two.
The flow chart and the circle.
Yeah, both of them. Jump offs from both of them.
Those are my favorite too.
Yeah, I mean, because I see them as being drill downs. This one gives you the big picture. The other one has every detail you ever wanted. You'll understand it a lot more.
What do you think, Levi?
I like the circle one. I think so far the best, but it's a little bit easier to read.
Cool. Okay. All right. That'll be our group's recommendation.
This
circle
one,
circle first.
Circle, and then having
And
this
then
one also.
I mean, the calendar is fine, if you want a third one.
It seems like it should be somewhere, but I think if you just come to this, you can.
That'll give you a headache.
Well, and I think conceptually, if we keep it at just the season analogies, it's easier to grasp.
Yeah.
And frankly, it gives us more flexibility too.
Good point.
When we spill a little on either side, it's still just. It's what Oracle always does with their release cycle. They always refer to things just by season because they can't easily disclose their dates. I think it's kind of clever.
Yeah.
Are these going to be truly interactive?
Well, so that's then what we would be working on is where we would have drill down content and and what they would do.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, you can add more broad or general comments to the flowchart, and you can add more specific things to the site plan. Yeah.
Yeah, the flow chart, does that already have drill downs in it? I don't even remember.
Might be a couple of like prototypes, but I don't think.
I thought Jen was working on something and I missed a meeting when I was on vacation. So I don't know if she completed any prototypes or not.
Yeah, I think because I feel like I clicked on something, but I don't think it's hit prime time or anything. So.
They were exploring what kind of tool to use to build it, what might go into it, just to, I think, get the feel of what are possible, what makes sense, what's not going to take 12 people, 30 minutes a day to update.
Well, I mean, the first time I went to a presentation on that flow chart, and it took an hour.
This one,
I believe it. Yeah.
And by the time you're done, you have an idea of what's going on. But if you want someone to go look at this on a website,
no, yeah.
What people will actually put up with.
I think being able to click around on this thing would be really, really useful. The flow chart, because it is all there, and it's not super complicated. It's just sometimes you maybe want to click and
even just to get an acronym.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah, they're just
We do have
huge,
to
huge
get
amount
the
of
right
information.
version of that though.
Oh.
That one's still a standard version. There's no IT. That's OPEX. That the green circle should be OPEX. It shouldn't be IT exec committee.
Well, I blame Rex.
I agree. Okay, should we talk about the details and input?
I'm a little unclear about what
Yeah,
you're asking.
as am I.
So, I think what we're supposed to do is come up with some content for if you were to hover on the input picture, what would you want to see there?
On the cycle graphic?
Yep. Well, on either, because it would be either the red portion of the flow chart or the fall, right? Winter portion of the spring. Well, I'm gonna hold this. Yeah.
Well, maybe I don't know if it's super obvious. Maybe the thing where you guys gather data from the user survey. It talks with what Scott put in his video. It's going to talk about the thoughts you guys have with the couches and the administrative units and everything like that. I mean, I think people are going to want to know, where are the ideas coming from the high school.
There you go. Who do I talk to? Who did you talk to?
Yeah.
Who can you talk to? How do you talk to them? Where's the survey?
Well, yeah, because the survey, can have a one sentence about what the survey is, and then a link to the real survey, so you can see it.
Okay, survey. Where is it? What else did you guys say? About the survey? How do I?
Well, a link. I mean,
Just
a sentence.
We need to talk about what it is, maybe.
Of what the survey
Maybe what?
is, and to the actual survey.
What we do with it?
Yes.
Or should that be in the next?
That's
the decision process?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that the next?
Oh yeah, that's the next.
Probably.
That's the
We're
next
just
one.
gathering right now. Okay, so the survey.
So, I mean, who gets interviewed? How you might set up an interview? I don't even know if you can. Imagine if you're important enough, you can.
Well, the other thing is that besides the survey meeting, they'll always take just input. Just contact us.
Right.
Brittany, do you have an email address? Yeah, well, just put that there. Email, and just say if you've got an idea that you want to get into this group, send it to whatever it is, IT governance at UMN.edu or whatever.
Get the survey meetings. I mean, maybe you just call it direct contact as a third. How do you connect to us? Do we have a phone number? Do you go right through OneHelp? Do you email directly?
There was talk maybe at the last meeting or the
Yeah, that would be good. Just use a web form. Don't even bother with an email. Because you could set it up as a...
But then isn't that the survey, or are you talking about
No.
for specific issues?
We actually, when we were doing the survey, we poo-pooed the web form for that exact reason, because we wanted to control the survey.
Sure.
And, we can revisit that, but we didn't want to have an overload of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe something where you have the survey, and then when the survey, except it's a survey up all the time.
Survey up all the time.
I was going to
Forget
say
it.
probably what you were going to say is that as long as there's a way for people to put something in the graph. So maybe it's a survey.
Or, I mean, that's, but
Can you guys see me, Rex?
Yep.
Yep.
Can you share your share the presentation? Let me see what happens.
Well, yeah, that would be something that's got to be, I mean, either that or maybe the survey for someone who doesn't want to slog through all the pages, just have a
Man, I wasn't getting anything.
box at the top, and they can fill that in, and if they're not willing to take the rest of the survey.
I don't know. Do you almost have to take direct complaints? I mean, you almost have to take direct complaints, don't you? I don't know.
Yeah, you do. And those go to One Health.
Right.
Well, except can you imagine
Don't
calling
call
up
me
One
Bill.
Health and saying,
No.
I've got an idea for the IT governance.
Yeah, and we would take that personally. Any one of us would.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think one
Okay, so I can see an Excel or a PowerPoint, yeah?
Yep.
Yep, I just put it to full screen.
Yeah, I'm not
Sorry,
seeing it
Levi,
full
I don't
screen.
mean to be talking over there. You can
Is there
see
an
the full
actual
screen, or
meeting
you
going
can't?
on?
Yep, there's a meeting going on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. You still there?
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anybody in your room.
We've got one. Levi's joining us. He's
You're just leaving your camera pointed at an empty spot.
yeah.
Having trouble with all the
So
voices.
I'm moving the screen. I'm moving the slides. Are they changing for you?
No, I just see the overview slide.
Okay.
Okay, take your presentation down. I want to try sharing. Oh, now I saw it change.
Yep. That's as long as I'm not in. If I don't go to full screen, then you can see it.
Okay, let me try.
Well, yeah, because the meetings are usually.
So you can see my presentation now?
Yes. The flowchart says things like school, which might be nice to call out. So Now, if you go to full screen, I'm still
So
just
now
seeing.
I'm in full screen.
I'm just seeing Pike Hall
The one that's
165,
voted for
the
a
same
long time,
same one that we were on.
Always gets grouped in with ASR, but they're separate. No one ever goes and talks to admissions.
Hey, why don't you?
ASR,
Well,
no,
let's
they have
disconnect
very
and you got to get
I
going,
know that
and
they exclude.
then we can
Oh, yeah.
troubleshoot
So-
this
Okay.
later on.
Bye.
You have a good one. Thanks a lot. Sorry, Levi.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, this is one we didn't have a targeted meeting with. Like student affairs is another one who is different than ASR, and we didn't meet with them. It's definitely, but at the same time that people know about this process,
Well, it was new
they'll,
too.
they'll
It was kind of
want
catch
to
up.
come.
Sure.
Yeah. So did you do the senates?
Senate phase.
Yeah, but I mean, did you do the senates? Like civil service senate?
Yeah.
PNA senate? Yeah.
And then we
Student
did
senate?
academic. Leadership teams. So, and you guys maybe can help think about that, but what we did is we worked with each of the local IT directors to get us in. Because that's who we had a relationship with in most cases, and so sometimes we would get with the Dean's Leadership Council, sometimes we would just get with the faculty group, sometimes we would get with the IT committee they already had established. so it wasn't consistent, but we
You can
kind
use
of
some of
took
your
their
coordinators
lead and
too, since we meet with a lot of the IT heads.
yeah,
To help them figure out what they're going to buy.
right. And you could tell in a lot of cases how the IT director was positioned at the college based on who we could meet with.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So in some colleges we could get with the dean's cabinet, and in some we couldn't.
Sure. I've seen that. I mean, just from meeting with them all, I see the same thing.
Yeah, different people are positioned differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it just is how that college works.
Right.
So.
Lever, are you still with us?
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear you guys.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's just a lot of noise here.
Yeah.
Kept very complete lists of who you saw last year. Did you identify people that you wished you had a chance to meet with that you're going to make sure you get with this year?
Not. Well, we've had conversations about it, but we don't have a list. We don't have a list of the people we didn't meet with. So we should do that. It's a good idea. Yep.
Yeah, you may find some groups who want to talk to you about every other year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we've said the things that we want to see come out of the circle or the flow chart are a survey, where it is, what it is, and a link. The meetings, who's getting interviewed, how they get interviewed, and we're talking about including Senate groups and student groups and leadership teams. And then a direct contact possible, which is maybe doable, maybe not, but maybe an email, web form, a call, or personal contact. That's what we've got on our big wall diagram.
I have one here. Jen Bentrim brought us an old flip sheet from the last meeting. Colleges gathered.
We've got that. Survey, email, feedback forms. Wouldn't that be great items? I mean, I think we've kind of got it covered.
It's just a little more
detail.
Well, and it's also, they've got formal versus informal, which breaks out to the meetings as the formal and the direct contact as the informal.
Sure.
Any kind of, I mentioned, excuse me, feedback forms. What is that? Like after the whole process is over, give us feedback on what we did last year. I know what a feedback is, but I'm not sure where feedback is.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's all kind of feedback in a way, whether or not we worked on it last year or the year before. I do agree. I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that the survey is up all the time, the fact that there's unless someone felt a need for some organized, like follow-up or something like that, post-mortem.
Right.
I think the feedback is sort of.
Yeah, and I would want. So I have a hedge against feedback forms because often they become anonymous, and it's not helpful then. And so what I would love to do is encourage people to do direct email to person, to one of the ACIOs or probably an ACIO. That's probably the right avenue, and let them just, to do a deep dive into the feedback so we could make sure we understood it and didn't misinterpret it, take it out of context. Because I don't like the dump and run feedback.
Well, then you can also look at getting an organized feedback. I mean, set up something a little more formal. So maybe something like you met with the deans this month, 6 months later, you go meet with them for 20 minutes and say, tell me what you think 6 months later about what we did.
How did we do?
How did we do? What are you hearing? Is it making sense for you? Are we doing what you wanted to do? Something like that. Take them out to lunch or something.
Yeah.
A little bribery, coffee or something.
kind of that relationship management piece of it, and I think it comes into that, just in maintaining the relationship with them.
Yeah, because
That's part of it. It's an ongoing process.
It's a long-term ongoing process.
Separating feedback on the governance process versus feedback on I didn't get what I wanted.
Right.
You know.
Right. Well, and that's the feedback.
Yeah.
And
right.
that's the important stuff to kind of nurture, and it's an important part of the conversation for them to know that what they asked for wasn't what anyone else asked for, or it wasn't, what the mass asked for.
Yeah, I mean, because I assume you come up with some kind of hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and you can show me hierarchy
Right.
and say, here you are.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
We got funding through here, we got, good luck here, and this one is like, when someone has a fundraiser for it, we'll do it.
Right. You should have come with money to the table for that one.
Yeah.
How you doing?
We're doing fine.
Yeah.
We're good wrap.
You're about ready to.
I think so.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the important thing is that people have to believe that they're having an input.
Right.
And we know they are, but we've got to, whatever we need to do to make sure that they realize that.
Right.
We were talking about that in the transparency committee group, and letting people know that like we're getting paid. Out of 2,000 responses, we got 4.
Right.
And then these other people told us. But yeah, I don't know where that fits into the cycle. Maybe it's not really. I don't know. I guess it'd be after decision.
It's after decision.
Okay.
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
Because the slide, you guys have seen the slides.
I'd like to see them again.
Yeah, exactly.
If
Well,
they're-
people have been asking for them. I shared them at the service owner and line manager meeting a couple weeks ago too. We have them. We will share those, and I think that'll be kind of the transparency piece on this is the discuss. But we've been waiting for Scott to get through his meeting with the deans, and so he in fact might be done as of now. If not, there's like 2 left. I mean, it's just at the tail end. But
I think that's very interesting for transparency for a lot of people to see what came out of it and to look at what Scott just declared. Well, we got the video yesterday or Sunday, declaring what our other top one.
Yep.
The fact that Wi-Fi is number 2 ought to tell a lot of people they were heard.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
that alone.
Exactly.
If you asked for it, it's number 2 on the list.
Right.
So you should see that.
Right.
Then they just need to realize that it's not going to happen tomorrow.
All right, 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll report back.
We intentionally only put forth 4 new things, so we can hit it hard and show results in 6 months. I mean, this is
you can have a roadmap.
We want to focus.
Well, that number 3 was kind of broad.
Yeah.
Improve desktop support. It's like,
well, we can do it that one shortly though. Is kind of, and you guys are working on this, but get the strategy, get it going. If we need to staff it up, we staff it up. You know what I mean? We can do those kind of.
Well, now we're going to put the gas to the consolidation.
Yep.
So if there's a tension on it, and that's what's happening, then maybe it will help. I mean, I think a lot of us would contend it's pretty good, but I would actually like to see some of the specifics as to what parts of the desktop support we're actually complaining about. Like one of the surveys that I read through just said, get new tech support guys. That's what it says. And well, that's not helpful.
No, that's not exactly.
And when they were they're going through the synthesis and everything, you don't know if they're talking about
well, yeah, right. You have no idea.
Yeah, or what was it? The guy who came into our office and he was here for 3 weeks and I didn't like him and he loused up my computer.
It could have been the Xerox guy for all we know. I mean, honestly, when you don't say specifically what happened, it's like you said, when you dump and run, it's useless.
Yeah. But one thing we do know of that was that a lot of the complaints came in that people were frankly they couldn't get on with their software, and so that's something that we can just we should be able to influence fairly quickly.
Because they gave us it.
Well, and it's because that's a policy that's controlled locally, and so there's a way there's a.
Well, it was university policy that we don't give that for years. It has been, still is.
probably do it.
It is.
But
But
everyone.
You have to have a. You
But
have
if
to
I
have.
want to do it,
Yep,
I
you
have to
can.
sign in with a different ID and password.
Well, I think that's the way to implement it, but that's a different question. The question is, it should be even allowed. First, you have to decide if you're going to allow it. And the second is, how are you going to do it?
Exactly.
Because there's some people want to just give every XR 500 admin rights. I just heard today, and that scares me. I like having a second sign-in. It makes you a little more responsible with it.
Well,
We were
also
having
you can
that
track
debate.
it.
I need to go to that security meeting. Clearly.
Yeah, I mean, if, you know, if
No,
you've
Brian would like that as well.
yeah, I mean, if you've got some idiot who's, you know, downloading viruses and everything else, you want to be able to track that, and that's what you can do with the second sign.
All right.
The first one, it's just much easier.
Lively discussion. So let's take a few minutes to report back to each of the groups about the discussion which was had. And I think we can start, maybe we'll be all crazy and start with group 3. How about that? Huh? Non-linear. I was over there. We had a really good discussion. So here, I'll hand off the mic, Brett.
Okay, so our focus was on funding, and we had a good conversation to what degree regarding to what degree this area should bother or try even to explain institutional finance in general. And we ran quickly away and said we might be able to successfully describe at a very high level and vaguely how IT funding happens institutionally. The budget 5 are identified on the graphic, so we should say something about that, right? There's an executive group that ultimately has responsibility for allocating funds across the institution. These are who that group is, and if you want to learn more, here's a link to the finance office, and they should be responsible to explain how budgeting happens. Call Link, and he can bring his 10,000 slide deck show to your neighborhood. That aside, it was really about trying to reveal the funding for this year and demonstrate how the governance process has impacted that funding. So in addition to a set of pie charts that might describe the IT investment in a couple of ways, the total investment relative to the institutional budget, and then a service-based representation of the finance picture for this year. In addition to that, a longitudinal representation of how that has been reshaped over time by successive governance processes. So we might have a 3-year cycle where we show this is what it looked like 3 years ago, this is what it looked like 2 years ago, these are this year's priorities, and so this is this year's set of pie charts that show that change. Anything I missed? Is that it? Oh yeah, so one nuance there was about how, and one reason we ran away from trying to tell the story about financial management in general was the way in which central IT organization is funded and the decisions are made within that funding stream regarding allocation across services. That's going to differ from college to college. So a dean gets a pile of money. How much of that money goes to the IT services within that college? And within that pie, how do the services get shaped? The processes might differ pretty radically from college to college. So that's a level of detail we probably can't successfully manage, at least not now.
So this group told us about what they can't do. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. And it's like, I can serve pie. All right, a big picture of pie. Drill down, pie. The perspective about this was good, and so coming from the community, if I was given this task, I would have just done something that was static. And so the idea that we need to think about dynamic detail, it's more work for whoever or whatever group is going to be managing it, but obviously it's an important thing to have data that is meaningful in real time. So a difference of the way I think we have talked about, or at least the way I've perceived this project. So that's a great thing to come out. Thank you. I'm going to skip over to group 1.
All right, so we had input, and we talked about The different ways we get it. So a section on the survey input with some basic information about what it is, and then where it is, a link to it, that kind of information. We almost dove into the results piece of it and realized that wasn't our homework. Then we talked about a section for the meetings, and so who gets interviewed and how to get an interview, and having some personal contact there on if you wanted a face-to-face meeting, how that you could do that. To talk about the groups that we do target, so Senate committees, student groups, academic and administrative leadership teams. And then we had another section where we talked just about regular direct contact and how they could do that. And so email, direct email, maybe a web form, a phone call, stressing the personal contact piece of that we didn't want this to be a forum. I use the expression to dump and run, that we wanted personal feedback that we could dive into and really understand. And we finished our conversation, I'm not sure it's right here, but it's a how did we do process. And so kind of doing some sort of continuous improvement on it and that follow-up in the relationship management.
I forgot to ask group 3 about this, but did you have a conversation, and did you have a conversation? Did everybody have a conversation around the first thing, which is the pictures? And sorry, I may have been zoned out when you said that, but.
Yeah. So we did, and we voted, we liked the circle, the latest image with probably some revisions, but the essence of it being really good. And then the other one we wanted to keep in there was the flow chart, but maybe in a secondary format, or so keeping it relevant, but I don't know if it's a drill down. I don't know. We didn't know, but we like those two. Yes,
Brad. It's a long way over here.
Yeah. So we prefer the classic, the classic image. That one, yeah. But I had a question actually for this group. One of the questions or one of the reactions that we've gotten frequently to this image and images like it is the listing of input, the sort of the details about how we're listening and who we're listening to. So where did you guys come down on trying to represent or not representing at a level of detail who we talk to and how we manage it? That question makes sense.
No. Oh, okay.
I'll try.
He totally gave me the look of, are you serious? And I can barely see him even, but I could tell that he was giving me.
So a question that I got a lot was, who were you talking to? And how did you decide who you're talking to? So if you think about the input as, at what level of detail are we going to try to manage in a website or whatever?
Yeah, no, definitely. We think that's kind of context on our side. And that we would put in there, I don't think we necessarily want to put in our content every unit we want to talk to, although we could. It would get me just be more with that. But also having the way to get yourself on that list. You would want to have permission about it. They did not. And I know this one, but they did not.
It was on.
They were different.
Anyway,
That one may not.
I was just going to say, don't you already have a spreadsheet for this, where you have this, we've met in the past. So if you have that, and you have your link of how you get on that list, and then that just says update next year, right? Update. I think people want that.
Right. So we're going to have that fight of how can we have it endure and have it the least amount of maintenance on it as possible, but still have it be, usable for people. So I think that's reasonable to. I was thinking the same thing, that we have a graphic that we've seen about who was contacted, but it'll take maintenance, and so that decision will have to be made.
circle image and then go to the classic one or the timeline? Classic, cool. Thank you.
Okay, group number 4.
All right. Switch it up on us. So we did start by talking about where do we want to start? Which image up there? We did, just like Brittany and the input group, starting with that cycle image, the circle one that we started brainstorming at the last communication/transparency meeting. And of course, feedback and edits will come, especially this will be very useful, what we're gathering right now. And then we really talked about what would that image potentially be for execution on that front page before you click in and drill down, and like the light switch, the delivery truck, some things like that. So then we talked about when we drill in, what are parts of execution? And we thought we'd have it be a little more verbal than imagery, but we also have some imagery to follow that up. More of the 10,000-foot vision of this. So what happens? Formal community of practices are kicked off. Working groups are also there. Leads are established. So those kind of things, what those images are, maybe wireless. If wireless is a huge priority, we have a cool map of campus and more wireless access points are there, because we thought of this. We want this audience. We want to capture the interest of students, faculty, and staff, and why do they care? Like what's important? So we're trying to find some images that would make sense. A help desk consolidation, a lot of people answering the phones, things like that. And then Dan had mentioned what are big parts of execution. So project planning, resource allocation, assignment, project management, communication, development, testing, deployment. We can really start drilling down into what this means. But that was, and then some point circling back to here's where an input starts, even if the formal communities of practice and these priorities are still in progress.
Just to review, you like drilling down from this graphic, and only this one. Sorry to stump you. That's okay. And finally, group number 2.
I think we liked this first graphic and drilling down from it, but I think we saw the benefits of the other 2 too. I think both of them should be available, and if drilling down to the same content, existing content is available from those, it's not a lot of extra work. It's all going to the same place, then that's good. But I think the classic has its usefulness for some people, but also the calendar. I know for me, it helps me kind of figure out where things go. I do think this is a good starting one because it's simple, but I do think the other 2, are important too. That one and classic, I think, are good to have. Whether you drill down from them or not, maybe the question. Maybe drill down from this one and the circle. The calendar's just kind of thinking.
All right, so good. So we can't really see this. So we kind of talked about the governance process and the wording of governance process, that it was not accessible to folks. And so we changed it. So we didn't really change it, but we kind of put in a sentence of how does the U set IT priorities as more of an explanation for IT governance. And basically said that, how does the U set IT priorities? Well, we follow a 4-phase process that is circular. And we were talking about the phase 2 that we were talking about was decisions. And what's under decisions is the synthesis of the input and the weighing of the input coming from the input surveys and the meetings with the different various groups. And then we were thinking, I was particularly thinking that it was weighed 50-50 input survey was 50%, and the other meetings, the 50 meetings, were another 50%. Was that right, or is that way off? ACO question. All right, you guys, more. Was that right?
Are we using that?
Is it how is it weighted? I mean, the input survey looked like it was 50 weighted 50%, and the all meetings were 50%. So pretty much split, right? Yeah. So and then we talked about how the next part of the decision making was sort of the validation of the synthesis of input. So the validation is where it is socialized. The priorities that came out of those, the synthesization is socialized with the deans, administrators, and chancellors, and then it goes on and is socialized through the OpEx group and to the VPs and presidents, so the budget 5. We also talked about the question we had probably for the ACIOs again is there more deliberate attention on long-term priorities paid here, or is this just looked at the 2-year cycle and doesn't really, does the 6-year plan somewhere fit in somewhere of this? And as you're going through the input, where does the strategic planning happen? Is that still in the decision process that you're strategically thinking about the future? And should we say something about that?
I think one thing that's missing from the account so far is it's not just about getting the input and then validating the input. The validation between those two steps is the addition of other vectors. So the prioritization conversation that Scott's having with the deans and the executives isn't just here's what the community said, which do you think this is right? It's here's what the community said. Here's a Huron report. Here's an audit, a set of audit findings. Here's why I can't sleep at night. So there's a number of other, here's ESOP, right? So there's a number of other issues that are part of that executive conversation. And that's partly an answer to your question about long-term strategy, is that is in part being driven by the executive conversation about institutional big lifts, right? And so that's part of the conversation.
So the question then, Brad, would be, in our drill down, would we then have that pyramid that Scott had with, this is what makes me not sleep at night, this is that piece. Would that be part of this drill down then, because it explains part of it?
I absolutely think that, certainly and back to the concerns about whether or not we're static, I mean, we could just put up as exemplars of the process something from a particular year and say this is an example of the sorts of things. And I think that triangle is a perfect example of the sorts of more strategic level priorities that come into the conversation.
So answer is it should be included somewhere in that. That's
yes.
Great. Also a question for the ACIOs. Is there anything about decisions versus these are recommendations going to the executive staff, the executive committees? Going over to Brittany.
Is this on?
That's the board mic.
We won't hear you. We thought we were so smart. Oh, they were getting it? Okay. Nothing we gather is a decision. So everything we're gathering and synthesizing is information we're sharing forward in a recommendation. The decision process is with the executives.
The decision actually happens when it gets back to when it goes to the OpEx group and the VPs and the chancellors. So that's the actual decision part. So that begs the question of, isn't that then still? So the one question is is the funding the decision then?
We're calling this phase of process decision, and so just thinking about the audience, is it implied that decisions have been made at this point? when in fact, if it's a funding decision, maybe it hasn't quite. Maybe these are recommendations for funding. Just thinking about the audience.
We are approaching the phase 2 is from an audience perspective of who's reading it to see what they, what they'd actually be looking for here, how they'd understand it.
I'm thinking about that audience angle, and it spun a thought in my head that does the layperson care about the funding? If if the executives say we're going to do it, does the general staff member go to that point in their head on like who's paying for it, or do they just say, oh, okay, we're going to do that, we'll do it?
From a general staff point where it used to be civil service, no. Some other ones, yeah, they do. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think we can wrestle with some of this in the affinity groups and the steering committee too. I think it's a great question. The exercise here is about brevity. It's about making sure that we can explain the process, but we can't get to every nook and cranny of how this operates. So I think that
it's just a question of wording,
right.
Recommending IT priorities,
sure.
Or are these decisions? We're saying right now that decisions have been made in this phase. And
right.
Yeah.
So is phase 2 decision making?
I could be way
or
off, but
recommendation?
it seems like the decision is made. The funding, they have to figure out how to fund the decisions that are made, and then maybe there's some changes that happen if they can't. Right. I mean, I can, if I make a decision in GPS Alliance. Right.
So phase 2 is priority decisions. Decision on priorities, not really whether they go forward or not.
That's an option. Yeah. Priority decisions.
Part of the 2-minute video, right?
Right. Part of the 2-minute video.
We're done.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for addressing those 2 points. This detail will go to the communications group to kind of synthesize and sift through it and utilize it for the next rev of our interactive map, for one. The steering committee will also discuss the content. Everybody get that? Okay. We got about 20 minutes left, so it's going to be a quick pairing off into two people in a group and writing a script for a 2-minute video explaining IT governance. Yeah. Okay. So you're saying put these two, just make sure we capture that content? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes. We'll do that. So you've got paper on the tables and some pens. So grab a partner. And we all have seen video. Did everybody see Scott's video? Most people saw it? All right. So that's an example. Actually, I have it queued up on the computer here. I guess I don't. Yes, I do. Okay, so the task then is partner up, and this is meant to be open, just to get some ideas generated on what the community feels like would be a helpful video for them and their colleagues in understanding the IT Gov process. So, do you want it to be fun? Do you want it to be serious and detail oriented? Do you want it to be overview? What are some phrases that go along with that would make sense in a video to help explain those things? You can start out you can use this as a guide to comment on some general ideas about it if you want. The video should have graphics. The video should have lots of pictures of the university. What are the things that you think will really engage the community in understanding the process? And again, this is meant to have an enduring quality about it. Okay, so something that we can build and it will be able to go from year to year and explain, particularly if you think from the perspective or the lens of the new staff member. Somebody comes to the university for the first time and they say, what's the governance process? We can show them a video. What's it going to say? All right? So grab a partner, grab a piece of paper, start writing things down, and I'll tell you when it's time to stop.
And it's the whole process, not just our group, right? Not just input, for instance.
Yes, it's the whole process. This exercise is the entire process.
Do you three want to work together and you can just ask me questions?
Sure. Yep.
I'm way too close to the process to be objective about what should be in there.
This is a very difficult task to do in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we could get some concepts maybe. I don't know about a script.
This? I mean, Scott just explained it in that video. I don't understand what they want.
Scott explained it kind of like the circle, and I like the circle enough that maybe we just have the video be about the circle in a way.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Simple.
I mean, I really like Scott's videos, and the bouncing back and forth, but that was the worst of him that I've seen because it looked like he was reading a computer through half of it instead of having him. All the other ones I've seen him do is they've got the prompt and the camera on the same space.
Or he's not reading. He's talking he's just talking.
But
usually happening in those other ones.
It could be, but I mean, I know that. I mean, all you have to do is look at people reading television news.
Yeah.
The text that they're reading is at the same level as the camera, because it was off-putting.
I like that 4-piece circle.
Yeah.
And I think you voice over it. The IT governance process at the University of Minnesota is divided into 4 parts. I don't think this is a place for it to be funny. That doesn't make sense to me here at all. I mean, I like funny.
It can be clever.
I don't get. This is not.
Yeah, it can be clever. It's not funny.
I might. One of the things I was thinking. Okay, I totally said I wasn't going to do this, but I think a lead-in for this is that we're focused on customer-driven IT, and so that's the premise of. I think that's the foundation of why we're doing all of this.
And so maybe just to join in on that, I think that maybe this video should be produced for an audience of the greater university, and definitely not for like IT staff or anything.
No.
I mean, we can all get insight or whatever from you or from our staff or whatever, but so the concept customer driven, audience. Yeah.
Is there a printer in this room? I don't like red. No one can read my handwriting.
Well, people are going to have to read my greater university. I guess I was pausing because I don't know if we want to differentiate that at all. I mean.
Well, if you're doing a 2-minute video, it should be very high level. And, here's where to go if you want more information.
So it would be forever. It would be faculty, staff, students, everyone.
General public, if they care. And, you've got, then you'd have 30 seconds on each of the 4 parts. Or a 10-second introduction, 10-second conclusion, and then divide the other into 4 parts.
Okay. I kind of have that. Explain the cycle and then explain the steps in the cycle.
Yeah.
Maybe show the circle and voiceover. I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah. 10-second intro, 25 seconds.
Don't get me wrong, I could write the script. I can't do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think
I get too picky with words.
maybe it'd be a good idea in the video to say, if you want more information or if you want to talk to blah 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 this contact.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, there's media people who do this.
Right.
You know, we can throw some ideas at them, but it's the pros who should be doing this.
Well, what they're trying to do though is get the content ideas.
Oh yeah, the content, absolutely.
That's the instigation for this little.
So we have to talk about 4 sections, which are input. So we've got input, the recommendation, decisions on which recommendations, the funding, and the implementation. And the conclusion would be, if you need additional information, go here. If you want to contact someone, go here.
Yeah. Or
I might say make it really personal and say you make it personal to the person, whoever's viewing it. You have the ability to have input into this process. Don't hesitate to reach out or that whole soapbox of you make a difference, you matter. We want to hear from you.
Just another minute to get your key phrases, fantastic ideas down on paper.
So we don't want Scott and Goldie rapping about this?
Please no.
Okay, I thought I heard that.
Sure.
There is like a 10-second video of Goldie scaring me.
Yeah.
That's in the athletics reel. Like they did a video of Goldie around campus jumping out at people, and there's one spot of Scott and I walking down the steps of Johnston Hall, and Goldie's jumping out, and me, of course, screaming.
Nice.
And and then laughing. But we do. There is footage, and you are. All right, we're good. We've got good notes.
Yep.
You know what? Chris's chimney sweeps is a good enough.
All right. So just want to quickly check to see with each group if you have one or two things to highlight quickly. So were you 2 groups or all one, or what'd you do here?
Yeah, we kind of worked together.
Together? 1 or 2 things you'd like to highlight from your discussion?
We thought we could piggyback off the circle or the cycle. We could piggyback off the circle or the cycle we saw today, explain in an overview way, explain each steps in the cycle, maybe show it, do a voiceover, ask for feedback, and make sure that the viewer knows that they can make a difference or they drive the process and that we want to hear from them.
Great, thank you.
I think the main thing that we got from the discussion, other than we like the cycles also, the spring, summer, fall, winter, is that really we should really keep it as simple as possible and leave the details for maybe just acknowledgement of, if you want more details, go to the interactive map.
Excellent.
We thought of, just something about why governance matters. What it is we do, the delivering the value to the U, how it's impacted by others, the input to the process. We also thought that the interactive map, there would be some kind of a demo to show, maybe a mouse over showing what the different things are, or there's different links, how to use that so people can drill into that and see more information, how that works. And then we thought a nice ending would be an invitation for everybody to get involved, how their voice would be heard.
Great, thank you.
So our approach to doing one of these videos would be to do it in an absorbable or approachable way, because we know that this has to go out to everybody affiliated with the university. So I took the idea of like the Common Craft Show. They have videos on YouTube that describe complex concepts with note cards and sketches. So like step one would be a couple people talking. Step two might be like a table around a set of priorities. Step three might be like a boardroom table with some money in the middle. And then like step four would be a delivery truck with someone pulling out a box. So something like that, about 2 minutes long, and mentions that from start to finish, our governance process starts with you.
Excellent, thank you. Just so you know, we do have a script started. We have a group working on this. We've identified some communicators and video people. So this is very well underway. And this stuff that you gave us just now, content, is very critical, especially right now because we want to get it out as quickly as possible. So thank you for doing this little exercise here at the end of our time. 1 minute left. Any other ideas you can share on the group or on the way out? So we'll collect and review information. Next steering committee meeting will happen at the beginning of December. It's either next week or the week after. And the next full community meeting, the end of September. And so we will really push to have some final artifacts and be working to wrap this group up. All right. Thank you very much for attending. Have a great day.
Thanks, Christopher.
Jim had it, I think, in the blue and the vest.
Okay.
Who gets the border mic?
Oh, holy cow. Monkey butter.